While there are many things we all love about mixed martial arts, there's nothing quite like seeing a wild striking technique that results in a knockout. And for this video, we're going to take a look at 10 knockouts that really stand out among the rest. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, here are some of the rarest knockout finishes in UFC history. Number 10. Lyoto Machida, the crane kick. What better place to start than with one of the most iconic finishes in MMA history? Lyoto Machida has singled himself out as a highly effective karate striker, but back in 2010, Machida had lost his light heavyweight championship thanks to a first-round knockout from Shogun Rua, and then suffered another defeat to Rampage Jackson in his next appearance. So, naturally, he was looking to return to form, and a fight with the legendary Randy Couture seemed like the perfect opportunity to get back on track. And when the two faced off at UFC 129, he did exactly that. During the opening minutes of the second round, Lyoto Machida caught the natural with a stunning crane kick, knocking him out and shocking fans all over the world. The move looked as though it was pulled straight out of the Karate Kid movie, and judging by the perfect execution, it sure fooled us. Number 9. Yair Rodriguez, the upward elbow. There are many factors that made this next entry special: the opponent, the circumstances, and of course, the technique itself. During his fight with Chan Sung Jung in November of 2018, Yair Rodriguez was down on the scorecards, and it was clear that he needed to pull off a finish in order to win. But even with the prospect of defeat staring him in the face, Rodriguez had one more trick up his sleeve. After calling on the Korean Zombie to trade with him in the final seconds, Yair Rodriguez anticipated his forward momentum by ducking under and threw perhaps the strangest elbow strike the UFC has ever seen.
Body kick. One more flurry.
Before anyone knew what had happened, Chan Sung Jung was out cold on the canvas. Not only was this the latest knockout finish in UFC history, a KO that won Yair a fight he was losing, but it was also one of the best finishes we've ever played witness to. Number 8. Niko Price, the upkick. Niko Price makes his first appearance on this list thanks to a pretty nasty upkick, which he landed on the jaw of James Vick back in 2019. James Vick had a pretty rough time in the UFC towards the end of his career, with several brutal knockout losses marring what was looking to be a very promising run. However, in this case, all credit must go to Niko Price, especially for the amount of power that he was able to generate from his back. Caught in a dangerous position with James Vick above him, Price found his opening and caught Vick with a perfect upkick, which immediately put him to sleep.
He's gonna throw the legs to the side. James Vick, I think he's out.
It was not only an impressive finish, but remains one of the only 2 upkick finishes in UFC history. Number 7. Niko Price, hammer fists from guard. Niko Price's reputation as a fighter who is dangerous from his back really doesn't get enough credit. Sure, we're all aware that he has a proven track record of saving himself from undesirable positions, knocking out his opponents from his back. But we cannot stress enough how strange it is for a fighter to even have a single finish like this on his record. But Niko Price just so happens to have 2. The second came against Randy Brown. And again, Niko Price found himself forced to deal with Brown's top game in the second round. But where his upkick was the weapon of choice before, this time he opted to catch Randy with several hammer fists from the bottom. Usually, this type of strike would be little more than an annoyance for the fighter on top, a means for someone on the bottom to create space so he could sweep or attempt submissions. But for Niko Price, he somehow generated enough power to put Brown out cold.
Well, now some hammer fists. He's out. Brown is out. Niko the hybrid Price.
Yet another shocking finish from this highly creative fighter. Number 6. Dan Henderson, the back elbow. Dan Henderson might primarily be known for landing his massive H-bomb, but in the twilight years of his UFC run, he managed to score a knockout worthy of the highest praise. Facing off with Hector Lombard at UFC 199, Hendo improvised during a wild flurry on the feet. After Lombard had caught a kick that was thrown by Henderson, thinking fast, he unloaded a slashing back elbow, catching his opponent on the side of his head, putting his lights out there and then. Not only was this a genius piece of improvisation from Henderson, but on the list of brutal knockouts the UFC has delivered over the years, it's also one of the most unique. Number 5. Edson Barboza, the spinning wheel kick. The spinning wheel kick is a technique that is often tried and occasionally landed, but very rarely has it been perfected like this next example. Edson Barboza is without question one of the most devastating strikers to compete in the UFC, and while his recent form has taken a bit of a downturn, his highlight reel is undeniably impressive. And when he faced off against the English lightweight Terry Edom, the Brazilian produced by far his most iconic moment. In the third round of a fight that he was clearly winning, Barboza decided to shoot his shot, firing off the most perfect spinning wheel kick you'll likely ever see.
What do you want to do? Do you want to take a chance and risk getting knocked out? Oh my goodness!
The connection was just about as perfect as one can get, and as Terry Edom stiffened up and fell flat on the canvas, it was clear that we had just seen something special. Sure, this is a technique that you do see landed from time to time in the UFC, but no one has ever managed to do it quite like Edson Barboza. Number 4. Gary Goodridge, elbows from crucifix. Some knockouts, like our previous entry, are remembered for their flashy nature, while others, like this next one, are remembered more for their brutality. And in 1996, Gary Goodridge faced off against Paul Herrera, competing in a time where the UFC looked very different from the one we know today. After his opponent shot in for a takedown, Gary Goodridge was able to defend it and secured a crucifix early on. Then, in a moment of inspiration, he seemed to realize that he could just throw elbows onto his opponent's face. And that's exactly what he did. Not only did Herrera have no idea how to get out of the position, but as the elbows came raining down, the crucifix rendered him completely unable to defend himself. A great knockout, but definitely not for the faint of heart. Number 3. Steven Peterson, the counter spinning back fist. What's better than a spinning back fist that lands? A spinning back fist that perfectly counters another spinning back fist. And for Steven Peterson, a fight with Martin Bravo produced one of the most unlikely finishes you'll probably ever see. During the second round of their 2019 matchup, Bravo tried to catch Peterson coming in with a spin, only to find that Peterson had already anticipated this, reading his timing to land a spinning back fist of his own, which immediately knocked his opponent out.
So far, both of them look really good. Big spinning back fist. Steven!
It was a real one-in-a-million moment, and as you might expect, Bravo did not see it coming. Number 2. Matt Hughes, the double knockout. Matt Hughes is easily one of the greatest welterweights of all time and has earned wins over some of the best fighters in the sport. But when he faced off against Carlos Newton at UFC 34, he delivered one of the strangest finishes of all time. During the second round, Matt Hughes had been caught in a triangle choke by Newton. In response, Hughes lifted him into the air, walked him over to the side of the cage, and then slammed him onto the ground, essentially knocking him out cold. However, as it turned out, Hughes had also gone out as well, and even admitted that he was out once he recovered. Given that both fighters had actually been knocked out, it probably should have been ruled a draw. Instead, Matt Hughes was declared the winner and was awarded the UFC welterweight title. Number 1. Joaquin Buckley, the jumping spinning back kick. And finally, we come to our last entry, a display of unparalleled athleticism from Joaquin Buckley that saw him bring us one of the most incredible knockouts in the history of the sport. Facing off against a formidable test in the form of Impa Consaganai, Buckley fired off a kick to the body that his opponent managed to catch. Using this moment to his advantage, Buckley improvised and jumped into a spinning back kick, knocking his opponent stiff in the process.
So even on total strikes at the moment.
The move instantly went viral and will easily go down as one of the greatest knockouts of all time. A perfect finish, and one that will probably never be replicated in quite the same way. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.